It was supposed to be a simple Thanksgiving dinner, just like any other. Clara had invited her family over to her newly renovated home, a charming farmhouse tucked away in the woods. The kind of place that felt peaceful. She'd spent weeks preparing shopping for the turkey, baking pies, setting the table, but as the afternoon stretched into evening, something felt off. It began when the first knock came at the door. Claire opened it to find her older brother, Ethan, standing there with a peculiar look on his face. His eyes, usually warm, were wide and glassy, as though he hadn't slept in days. Hey, Claire, he said, his voice hoarse. Sorry I'm late. She smiled, relieved to see him despite his odd appearance. You're here! The turkey's almost ready. We just need to set the table. Ethan didn't respond right away. Instead, he stood in the doorway, staring past her with a strange intensity, as though there was something out in the woods behind her house that held his attention. Ethan, is everything okay? Claire asked, worry creeping through her voice. He blinked, shaking his head slightly. Yeah, just something's in the woods. I don't know. I'm just glad to be here. Claire dismissed it as a lapse, too caught up in the holiday spirit to worry. She ushered him inside and closed the door. Soon the rest of her family arrived. Her parents, her younger sister, Lily, and even her cousin Sarah, who had flown in from out of state. They exchanged hugs, settled into the cozy dining room, and everything felt normal again, at least on the surface. But as they all gathered around the table, something strange happened. The turkey, once golden and succulent, began to emit a faint, unsettling odor, like burnt feathers mixed with the scent of something rotting. Claire's stomach twisted as she noticed the color of the skin turning an unnatural shade, a dull grayish hue. Claire, honey, are you all right? Her mother asked, looking at her with concern. You're pale. You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, Claire stammered. I don't know. I thought I smelled something odd. Her brother Ethan, who had been eerily silent throughout the meal, stood up, rather fast. His chair scraped against the wood floor, the noise making everyone jump. His hands were trembling. I told you! His voice low and strained. There's something out there in the woods. Before anyone could respond, a loud crash came from the kitchen. It sounded like something had fallen, but it was followed by a guttural growl, one that didn't belong to any creature Claire had ever heard before. Her heart pounded in her chest as she looked at the faces around the table. Her mother's eyes wide, her hand clutching the edge of the table, while her father was already moving towards the door. His expression grim. Ethan, you need to calm down, her father said. We don't know what's going on, but we're not going out there. No! Ethan snapped, his voice rising. We have to. We can't stay here. Just then, the power went out. Plunging into the darkness, the air turned cold, a biting chill that seeped into the bones. From the corner of the room, Claire heard what sounded like whispering, soft, unimaginable words that seemed to come from the shadows themselves. The whispering grew louder, more frantic. It was almost as if the walls were closing in. Claire's pulse quickened, her hands shaking as she tried to find the flashlight she left on the counter. But before she could move, a heavy thud went through the house, followed by the unmistakable sound of something dragging itself across the floor. A scream pierced the silence. It was Lily. Claire spun around, only to see her younger sister standing by the kitchen doorway, eyes wide with terror. Lily's hand pressed to her mouth, and she was backing away slowly, as though caught in a trance. From the shadows emerged a figure, a hulking, misshapen silhouette, its face grotesque, mask of decayed flesh. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dark, two pits of blackness that seemed to swallow everything around them. The thing was dragging something behind it, something that slithered across the floor, leaving a trail of thick, vicious liquid. It was the turkey! The creature was wearing it, somehow as though the bird's body had become part of it, fusing with its own twisted form. Before Claire could react, Ethan lunged towards the door, his voice a frantic, panicked scream. We need to leave now! But it was too late. The door slammed shut, trapping them inside. The creature let out a low, rumbling growl, its mouth opening unnaturally wide, revealing rows of jagged, uneven teeth. It began to shuffle closer, its grotesque, from undulating as though it was constantly shifting, like something made of meat and bones that refused to stay in one shape. "Get out of here," Claire said, trying to rally her family, but their eyes were glazed with their movements slow, as if they were no longer entirely themselves. Her father, once a sturdy and reliable man, stood frozen, staring at the creature with wide, glassy eyes. Sarah, her cousin, reached for the door, but it was already too late. Something slammed against it from the outside, rattling the frame. The walls seemed to close in around them, the house alive with whispers. It was something far older and more terrible than any of them could comprehend. Claire backed away, her heart racing as if she realized what it was. This was no accident. This was no coincidence. The creature, the thing wearing the turkey's flesh, wasn't just part of the feast. It was the feast, and it had been waiting for them. As the darkness swallowed her, Claire's last thought was of her mother's sweetly carved pumpkin pie. The smell now rancid, the taste sour as it sat on the table before her. The feast never ends. Not for them, not for anyone.